You are listening to the Heartland Author Podcast. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, I had the opportunity to interview J. Bennecke. Luke is a thriller author with 3 books, the standalone novel Echo from a Bayou, as well as the first 2 books in the Jake Bendel series, Civil Terror, Gridlock, and Waterborne. A third book in the Jake Bendel series, Blackout, and a standalone science fiction thriller, Backtracks, are currently in the works. I'm here with J. Bennecke, who is a thriller author. Luke, welcome to the Heartland Author Podcast.
Great to be here, Aaron. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Sure. I'm Luke Bennecke. I've got 3 books out right now, and just signed with a wonderful agent, Terry Wolf at AKA Literary Management, and we're working on book 5.
Now, why did you decide to write in the thriller genre?
Great question, Aaron. I enjoy writing what I read. So I like fast-paced books with plot twists and stories that make you think, and especially if they have like a big plot twist at the end that I can't see coming. So I figured, hey, if I enjoy reading those types of books, let's go ahead and write those types of books.
Now, you have 3 books that are currently published, is that correct?
Yep, 3 books.
Yeah, and they're called Civil Terror, Gridlock, Waterborne, and Echo from a Bayou. Without spoiling too much of those books, what are each of them about?
All right, so the first book was basically Gridlock, and that's all centered around a self-driving car network that goes national. Terrorists get a hold of it, and hijinks ensue. They basically weaponize the self-driving cars that have to do with there's AI in there, and yeah, so that's a civil engineer protagonist, Jake Bendel, and he's basically there working with the FBI to stop a madman from causing too much damage. It's a cautionary tale as self-driving cars kind of come online in the real world. Second book was Waterborne. That's similar as far as suspense and thriller, but this time the water system in California is weaponized, the drinking water. And it's up to Jake Bendel and the FBI to once again stop the bad guys. The third book, I diverted a little bit. There's a completely different subgenre. This is more of a paranormal suspense, supernatural elements. And it's one man's journey to hunt down his murderer. I'll let that soak in for a little bit. One man's journey to hunt down his murderer. How can you hunt down your murderer if you're dead, right? So that's kind of the fun part with that book is it's still the same level of suspense and thrills, thriller genre, but with that paranormal suspense, I was able to kind of blend a number of different genres. It's been referred to as a genre bending suspense novel, and so far it's resonating quite well with readers. It came out last month. It was the first 2 books are Amazon bestsellers. The third book, Echo from a Bayou, is a #1 Amazon bestseller. So far so good. Happy with the sales so far on all of those, really.
Now, you have a couple of upcoming works, Blackout and Backtracks, and without spoiling too much of either book, what will those books be about?
So the fourth book will be the third book in the Jake Bendel world. And again, I need to emphasize this is not a series. It's kind of like Batman. Batman's not a series. It's in a Batman world, or Superman. Not that this is a comic book genre, but it's the same protagonist in a completely different set of circumstances. Same hero, different story. and you don't. They're all standalone books. Blackout is also a standalone, just like Gridlock and Waterborne. So Blackout is we have all kinds of fun stuff in there. We have a presidential assassination leading to um, uh, uh, countries, adversaries of the United States, interested in taking over our country, utilizing taking down of the ailing power grid that we have here in our country to cause problems and essentially throw us back, to the dark ages, society wise, technologically, and walk right in. That's kind of their plan, and so it's up to Jake and the FBI and the military on this one. This one's definitely a lot higher stakes um, to foil the plot of the bad guys. And the bad guys, by the way, are on this one are a lot more complex and nuanced than the first couple books. So I think the readers are going to really have a good time sinking their teeth into this story. And then Backtracks, which is a tentative title. Another title we have is Time Goggles. This is me veering off a little bit again into a different subgenre. This is um, a sci-fi thriller, and this is one where an MIT graduate student invents a way to see into the past. It's not a time machine, but you can imagine like a DVR recording of the past. You can look into the past. So that would be a fun tool for law enforcement because then they can go and look at murder scenes and maybe find evidence that that they weren't aware of. Or what if the bad guys got a hold of it? You can watch somebody enter their PIN number. Again, it has to all be in the past. You can watch somebody enter their PIN number and then go steal their card, and then go up to the ATM, enter their PIN number, and steal money, or a number of other things. We got creative on that story. I put my bad guy hat on and said, well, if I had this tool, what types of things would I do to become more wealthy or more powerful? So that was a fun book to write. Now that one we're currently in the developmental editing stage. It's about 75,000 words, and looking forward to finalizing that in the next year or so.
Now, of the books that have already been published, are all your books self published, all of them traditionally published, or some self published and others traditionally?
So right now I'm a what they call hybrid published author. Book one, I had an agent for. We couldn't get it traditionally published, so we self-published that. Book two, I was traditionally published by Black Rose Writing in Texas. And book three, we self-published. Now, book four, like I mentioned at the beginning, I now have an agent. So we're hoping to have a publishing deal for that one too. So that'll be traditionally published. So once that's published, it'll be, two books traditionally published and two books self-published.
Now, what do you do on a regular basis to become a better writer?
For me, the key is to write every day. It's a couple of things. Write every day to keep the muse, that part of your brain, like well lubricated, and so the ideas and the thoughts and the words keep flowing. Write every day. Not only does that keep everything lubricated, but it helps improve my writing. Second thing I do is I take classes and I go to book conference or writing conferences as often as I can. One thing that's helped me immensely is Thriller Fest in New York, put on by the International Thriller Writers Association, ITW. I've been going to those for 8 years now, and it's an annual trek to New York, and it's a whole week of talking to other authors and meeting with readers and taking classes. And in particular, they have a piece there. It's the first day of the event called Master Craft Fest, where you have the privilege of sitting down with a New York Times best-selling author for 8 hours, along with nine other authors, and we go over what everybody's written in very good, very deep detail, and we get their feedback. Not only the other nine authors, but a best-selling author, a New York Times best-selling author. So get their perspective, on, maybe we would reword this sentence a little bit differently here, or, you have a plot hole here, or have you thought about this, or what can you do to pick up the pace? All the different aspects that go into the craft of writing, the fun part of the writing, the artistic aspect of it. And so just hanging around those people and talking with them and talking about their successes and getting their feedback has been immensely helpful. And it just popped into my head a third um, tactic that I use is when I hire my editors for my drafts. I've been very fortunate to have editors have been very helpful in teaching me why they're making certain edits. For example, the first version of Gridlock, when I wrote it, I had kind of short, choppy sentences. I thought that would kind of make, I read somewhere that helps increase the pace of the writing, which it does. But if you have your whole book written in short, choppy sentences, it gets old after a while. And so the editor was like, you need to blend your sentences together, use more commas and make it more flowery when you want the pace to be a little slower. So I didn't really understand what that meant when she was first telling me. I thought, hey, don't you want thrillers to be fast paced? Put the pedal to the metal on page one and don't let up until, the last page. Well, no, you need to let your story breathe a little bit here and there and give the readers a chance to catch their breath. Um, and so you have to get a feel for that. That's not something that comes naturally right out of the gate when you're writing your first story. So that's something that I've had to learn, and I've had the privilege of having great editors throughout the years who've helped share that part of the craft and the trade to help me become a better writer. So that's the third piece to the puzzle for me personally.
Now, other than books you've written yourself, what books do you enjoy reading? What authors whose books do you enjoy reading? And do the books that you read influence your own writing in any way?
Sure, that's a great question. I read 90% of what I read are thriller novels. I read what I'm going to be writing because it does have an impact on kind of how I'm writing at the time, and you have to be careful with that because if you're reading a book that is not kind of congruent with your writing style, it could tweak my writing style a little bit out of my norm. And some authors don't like that. They complain or their solution is they don't read anybody while they're writing. I'm That doesn't bother me to that level, fortunately. So I like David Baldacci. He's one of my favorite authors. Great guy, great humanitarian, and just all around great guy, great author. J.D. Barker is another favorite author. I enjoy reading. I've read I think all of his books. He was the gentleman tapped by the Bram Stoker estate to write the prequel for Dracula, of all things. So quite an honor there. And he's one of the gentlemen I've taken the 8 hour class with at Master Craft Fest, and just a great guy, super nice, very helpful, very friendly, and just talented beyond belief. I would consider him a genius level author. Um, and then, Lee Child and Heather Graham and a number of other thriller authors that I enjoy reading, to, whenever I get a chance to read books. And yeah, I feel like any author is a sum of all the books he or she has read plus the books that he or she has written. And that's kind of where your voice as an author comes from. It's how you speak in terms of linguistic characteristics and grammar and pacing and all that stuff. It's not something that you can kind of put your finger on and say, this is this is one particular reason why you write this way. It's a conglomeration of hundreds or thousands of books that you've written or you've read, and the work that you've done to write books.
Now, are there any sources other than books that you draw your writing inspiration from?
Oh yeah, I'm a civil engineer by trade. That's how I made a living as a professional civil engineer in California, building roads and bridges and interchanges and freeways and things like that. And I talk to other engineers all the time about well, what if this happened, or what if that happened, or have we thought about this? And engineers have a kind of a funny knack, a funny way of thinking about the world in terms of problems and solutions, which can be helpful for when you're building a bridge. But also at the same time, it can be helpful for coming up with problems, at least for vulnerabilities that can be attacked by devious minds, terrorists, or what have you. So I've kind of used that as fodder, those problems, potential problems, as fodder to say, hey, what if this actually happened in real life? What would we do? Um, what would some solutions be, either engineering wise or non-engineering wise? And that's been a fun mental exercise for me to go through, for sure.
As you mentioned a couple of times that you have a background in civil engineering, and how has your work improved the roadways in Southern California?
How has my work as a civil engineer improved the roadways?
Yes.
Well, I've worked for a number of different transportation agencies, including the Department of Transportation here in California, Caltrans, counties of San Bernardino, County of Riverside, and a couple of dozen cities. And yeah, I've been involved with several $billion worth of planning and environmental and design and construction and maintenance of all sorts of projects, from bridges to interchanges to local streets to freeway widenings and retaining walls. It's been quite a fun career, um, to build and help people get from point A to B. It's all about, in our world, it's all about goods movement, and whether you're transporting stereos on the back of a truck, or cargo that just came in on a boat from China in the port of Long Beach, or getting your kids to soccer practice, on a crosstown freeway or whatever. So um, I feel like it's been a fun career. Still not done. Still have a few years left, and uh, maybe the best is yet to come. Who knows? But it's been a fun career, helping to make the roads safer, saving lives, and helping people get from point A to B as efficiently and effectively as possible.
J. Luke Bennecke, you were a wonderful guest for this podcast, and I thank you for appearing on the Heartland Author Podcast.
Oh, thanks, Aaron. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate you taking the time to give me some fun questions. That was great.
I wish Luke the best with his next two novels. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to write your imagination. Bye for now. You can learn more about me and my book writing projects at campaaronapollo.wixsite.com/authoraac. You can follow me on Facebook at AuthorAAC and on Instagram at AAC Scribe. Copyright 2023, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.